I was selling shit on the freeway. I was selling stuff out of my trunk, like P-Touch label makers, speakers,
to get by
phones.
For comedy?
Yeah, to try and make a little extra, cash.
Right.
They were refurbished items.
We're good to go? All right.
Let's go.
All right. Guys, we're not in the studio right now. We're in the hallway at a Claridge in Atlantic City with one of our favorite comics, Bret Ernst. Thank you so much for doing this, Bret. Thank you.
Man.
Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for coming out.
We had a great show. You had a great set. Bret's currently on Cobra Kai on Netflix. I became a fan of yours on the Dom Herrera's. I'm a South Philly guy, by the way.
Yeah, what a Yankee hat.
It matched.
Dude, by the way, I wear the same ensemble. But I'll wear my Yankee shirt with the Air Force One. Something about that and that goes together great.
You see, you're being a little hypocritical. I know you're a Dallas fan, so it's
I'm
like
not being hypocritical.
No, you're saying the Yankee hat.
Yeah, but it's different because I live in America and I believe in God and I hate terrorism. So of course I'm a
So it all works out.
It all works out. Being in America trumps the city. No, realistically, I should be a Dolphins fan because I spent a lot of time back and forth in South Florida, but I grew up in North Jersey. I was on Inside the NFL. I got to show you the video when I was in in seventh grade.
Whoa,
and
whoa.
I'm painted up in Giant Stadium.
Wow.
Rooting for the Cowboys. Guys are throwing beer on me. They did. Me and my little brother. Guys were awful.
So how'd you become a passionate Dallas Cowboys fan? How'd that happen?
I talk about this on the podcast because I have a Cowboys podcast on the Blogging the Boys Blogging the Boys on SB Nation. It's called Jersey Boys, and it's actually we're all from Jersey.
I've seen it a couple times.
And we root for the Cowboys. But to abbreviate the story, my real father. When I was younger, the Cowboys were always on TV. It's like early 70s, early 80s. I didn't know a lot about football. I'm like 6, but he's always like, let's go Dallas. He's always rooting for the Cowboys.
So you gotta do it too.
Well, that's what I was like, okay. So I figured that was his team, and then they went their separate ways. So I said this will keep us in common. Like I remember when we drafted Jim Jeffcoat, I'm like, hey, we just drafted Jim Jeffcoat. He's like, hey, that's great. Put your mother on, right? So when we lost the first time on the catch, the San Francisco catch that you always see with Joe Montana, I called him balling. I was devastated. And he's like, why you always tell me about the Cowboys? And I'm like, well, I thought that's our team. He's like, I don't give a shit about Dallas. He rooted for he was a degenerate. He was gambling.
Damn.
So because he's always like, let's go Dallas. I didn't know he had money on the game. So I thought he was just a fan, and I had put so much into them that I just
For
stuck with
him, and that's why Mom left him. Fuck him.
The reason I was asking because you know how in this area, like the tri-state area, a lot of people become Cowboy fans just to like be a jerk off to their friends, and like you have a legitimate reason. Well, so I didn't know where you were going to go.
I was
with
a kid
it.
in the '80s, and we never won anything. I mean, we didn't win anything in the '80s. We didn't win until I was like an adult. I've only been happy 3 times my whole life, and that was 30 years ago. I think
3 years ago, the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
I know, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to lie. As much as I hated you guys, I was rooting for you. Man.
They deserved it.
Well,
I had to put this backwards. I look like such. Now I'm wearing the Yankee hat.
But we're the only conference now with a Super Bowl winner for each team.
Right.
We're the only one.
Yeah.
I thought Buffalo was going to pull it out, and I thought Buffalo and Green Bay was going to pull it out.
And that would have been a great Super Bowl.
But, this Brady versus Mahomes. And by the way, he had a concussion.
Yeah, right? it was a little shady.
Yeah, he was all messed up, and he got up and was all rubber-legged, and right away, he's fine. We're like, no.
Do you think that line's a little fishy? 3? First home team in the Super Bowl, and Kansas City's laying 3.
Well,
I think that's shady.
But it depends if people are laying on. See, what moves the line, and I have another gambling show that we shoot in Vegas, as if I couldn't even be more of a degenerate. So the guy that's on our show is a guy named Jay Rude, and he's a handicapper for like all the MGM properties. He's one of the biggest in the world, and he's based out of Vegas. And the 2 things that move the line really is weather, but wind is huge, and how people might be laying a lot on Kansas City right now. So they'll move the line to get people to lay money on Tampa. So I actually texted him today, I'll show you, to find out why it's at 3.
Yeah, I just feel like that's very weird. I when it first happened, I'm like, this is going to be a pick. And then when it came out, I was just like, that's really crazy. Like that
really
the
crazy.
First home team ever with Tampa Bay.
It's hard
but
for
it's
me
not
to.
really it's not really home though, because you figure they got the first liners. They're flying in like 7,000 people.
Right.
Right, and then I think that they're gonna try and make it equal, but it's still not a packed stadium.
Oh, I thought it was just Florida residents. That was another thing.
You guys are probably wondering why I'm not talking much. I didn't have a dad at all. He had one for a minute. I didn't have one at all, so I didn't follow football
he's
really
not
hard.
a sports guy.
That's how I know I'm black. Dad, they run fast.
You don't like any sports?
No, I watch them. I'm not a dead heavy fan.
You
like
root
you
for the
guys.
uniforms, like
I root for whoever's in the room with me. They're pretty big. I root for whoever the big guys are rooting for, so I don't get hurt
you know what, man?
on the way out.
I remember one time I had put it was Chicago. The Bears were playing the Giants, and this is the thing that I learned my lesson, but I felt bad. So I'm in Vegas. This was years ago, and I'm sitting next to a guy that I took the Giants, he took the Bears, and this was like 2007, and I'm like, let's go, and I ended up covering. And I won the bet, and we were watching the game together. But I wasn't being a jerk off, like taunting him, but I was getting excited on him. And he's like, oh, man, right? So after the game was over, I said, yeah, man. He goes, well, how much did you win? I said, $50. He goes, the guy had $10,000 on the game. And I said, why didn't you tell me that? I would have given you my juju, and you could give me the $50 or the $55.
What was $50?
$45.
What did $50 mean to you at that time, though? You got to look at it that way.
But at the same time,
it didn't mean $10,000. It doesn't matter where you
I
are.
such a jerk. I felt so bad. I'm like, well, the guy's like, I do it a lot. So I'll make it up for the next game. No, he bets like 10 times a hand. I mean, that's what you see in Vegas, man. But now sports books are everywhere, so this is great.
Yeah. Now you started in the LA comedy scene, or did you start out here?
I started in Florida.
Okay.
In Miami. And so the first 3 years I was down there. We had a great crew down there. Billy Gardell was down there. Hedberg used to do a lot down there.
Wow.
When I started, Daniel Tosh was a year ahead of me.
Wow.
And we were working on a network together called the Whammy Network. I was doing sports for the Heat, and he had some show, a dating show, and then that open mic scene down there was really good when I started. Okay. And then I moved to LA 3 years later. So I had 3 years under my belt, but I moved out to LA to be a part of the Comedy Store. I originally came to New York, and I was selling shit on the freeway. I was selling stuff out of my trunk, like P-Touch label makers, speakers,
to get by
phones.
for comedy?
Yeah, to try and make a little extra, cash.
Right.
They were refurbished items. And I was about to ask, but I would pull to the gas station, and everybody. I would just sell stuff out of my trunk, and I wasn't getting the stage time. And I had met this girl that my first love, and she was out there. She was a Laker girl, and I kept flying to LA, and just every time I went out there, things just fell into place more.
That's awesome.
So then I went back to Florida, tried to earn a little money, then I just drove out with like $200 in my pocket.
Wow.
Yeah, Laker girl, huh?
So you're
first love?
You're
Italian guys always get the best girl. That was his first love.
Yeah. Were you a store guy or a factory
guy? Well, I love everything halves. Like I was very fortunate to perform at all three. But I originally went out there for the store. I got to the Comedy Store in '99. I got my button in 2000.
You got passed by Mitzi Shore?
Yeah, I was passed by Mitzi. And
Wow.
then I was there for 20 years until I moved to Ohio, and then got divorced, and then went down to Florida again, slept on my mom's couch, and then
Divorce is hard.
Things came back together, and then I bought a place in Vegas, and then I'm out in Vegas.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Now, I was mentioning the mic, and I said it briefly to you before we started. I became a really big Bret Ernst fan when you were on Don Marrera's podcast with him and Jamie Masada.
That was at the factory.
Yeah, it was. Oh, yeah, and that was like 9 years ago. And there was one thing that got brought up on that podcast. Don was busting your balls a little bit. He said that you and
Italian tracksuit.
No, he said you and Rogan are probably like the two toughest comedians out there. And he brought up a story about how you got heckled by a Persian group of guys.
No,
you're gonna slap the shit out of them.
Well, I mean, it's a long story, but I'm nowhere near. It's the two tough. That's like. Rogan is like, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
It's like he's here, and then I'm down all the way. I mean, there's no comparison.
Fighting?
Yeah, nuts.
No, I could just tell you probably hold your own based on like where you're from, your stories and stuff.
I mean, you guess, everybody's kind of scrappy if you grew up a certain way, but it wasn't that. It was that they were the ones being out of line.
Those guys in the audience.
Yeah, but when you're younger.
Yeah, and he had Rogan with him. Let's get it.
No, Rogan wasn't there.
Oh.
No, there was a couple other comics there, but, it was one of those stupid things when you're young.
Do you think like going back to that topic about LA? Do you think LA like versus New York? There's constantly that argument like what scene's better to become a stand-up?
Well,
like, what's your opinion on that?
Back when I was starting out, if you were really serious about stand-up, you wanted to be in New York because there was more stage time. You can't get a lot of stage time in LA. I mean, it's very difficult. First of all, everything's open from 9 to 2. Where back then, you had sets going on until 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
My buddy Steve Byrne, I remember when he first moved to LA, we did some commentary on a DVD that he did 13 or Bust, where he did 13 sets in one night.
Wow.
The most I ever got was 6 in LA. No, 5. What am I talking about? And 3 of them were at the Comedy Store. So I did the early show at the Improv, went and did the Laugh Factory, and then I did my OR set, and then they were like, we had to file out in the main room, and then I was able to go to the main room, and then I did a closer out in the belly room.
Jeez.
So
Wow.
if I wasn't in that one building, I wouldn't have gotten those 3 sets.
Wow.
And not to mention, if you're at the Comedy Store, it's like you can make noise in LA and you could get some love in New York, where the other way it's not always the
Not
same
the
way.
around.
Well,
yeah.
the thing that I always thought about LA as opposed to New York, I feel like it's pressure to kill more often because there's less clubs.
Well, I
you
mean,
have to consistently you got to be careful when you're working out stuff.
Well, I mean, Mitzi understood comedy. But the thing
That's
is,
the difference. That does make a
in
difference.
reality is that you take you wherever you go, right? I wouldn't be any funnier if I was in New York, or it would be different. I mean, your work ethic's your work ethic, so you got to hustle.
Yeah.
But the one thing I loved about Mitzi, and like if you ever go to the Comedy Store, you'll see under the cover booth it says you don't have. I'm paraphrasing it, but it's like you don't have 3 minutes to be funny. Be 3 minutes to be who you are. And what was weird about Mitzi is like if she passed you, and say I went up one night, when she was in the room. She wanted to see you take risks. But let's say I did a set and I kill and I get off and it's all the material that I know works because she's there. She might be like, you're not using the stage properly. And then you could lose spots that way.
Oh, she would get turned off.
Oh, she would be like,
yeah,
she'd warn you. And if she sees you trying to kill as opposed to taking risks in the OR. And then sometimes you could go up and eat shit. And she'd be like, that was very good. It was introspective. And
Really?
Yeah, she was like that. And
But
you know what
that's
else makes the
pays
story?
attention to jokes.
Well, she was just, she loved the room, the tone, like when she was sitting in the back. I can't explain it, but anybody that does that OR, the other thing that is really, I think that makes it even more special, we don't have an MC. So whoever
pass
goes
the
up,
mic.
you piggyback. So, there's so many nights I had to follow somebody that, when I'm starting out, I mean, I remember following Chris Rock one night. And,
Wow.
And he just, when he walked off stage, half the audience is getting up to go see him. And now it's like, hey, how's everybody doing? And everybody's getting out.
Yeah.
I remember when Dice brought me up one time. I have a great Dice story, but I'm still riled up because I got off stage, so you're going to have to fucking interrupt me.
No, we appreciate
Keep it going.
it.
That's
Thanks.
what
No, I'm saying I'll
Thank
keep
you.
going, so just ask the questions. If I start volunteering it, my mind's going, so I'll stop. But yeah,
No, I would love to hear how you
let's
met
hear the
Dice.
story.
Well, Dice is. This is the other thing that was great about the store, and you're interacting. Like I always tell people, if you're a fan of comedy, right, or say you're a fan of sports, this doesn't go to you. No. and you know that there's somewhere in America where you could go to a bar and you're going to see Roger Staubach hanging out with Steve Young, hanging out with Tom Brady, right? All these NFL legends are in one place. That's the Comedy Store in LA. So you're there and you're going to see in the back. I mean, I'll show you all the people that I've interacted with in my 20 years there. I mean, I've talked with Jim Carrey to Robin Williams popped in one night when we were all hanging out at like 2 a.m.
Wow, that's
And he
amazing.
just turned the corner. We're at the parking lot. He's like, oh, I missed this place, And I'm like, what are you doing here? I saw him. What the hell are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I just missed it. And he kicked it with us for like an hour. telling
Wow,
us
just in the
stories.
parking lot.
And then you watch other comics and it's not that you learn from them. You learn to read the room and pick the energy up, or I just can't explain it. But Dice gave me a gift one time that I didn't realize was a gift until later on. Because when I got there, that roller skating bit I've been doing forever, and Dice loved that bit. Yeah.
I'm gonna get Michelle on now. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And Dice loved that bit. He's like, I fucking love Tony, right? So it's a bit about a guy that is like the old guy at the roller rink, right? And
You developed that joke in Florida?
Yeah, but
Wow.
it was actually the Wallington Skating Center in New Jersey. And then when I moved back down to Florida, I was at Galaxy, and that same guy was there. And then I noticed like
travels
every
the
rig I
roller
went to,
skate.
there was that old ass dude that was like shuffle skating, and I always made jokes about it. So Dice said something to me one night, and I got a main room spot at like 10:15. It was prime, and it was packed. And I was always working in the OR, so she gave me that main room spot. And Dice goes, I want you to do something for me. And he was, I was friends with him, but I was still like, it was the guy that I loved growing up. He goes, I want you to go on stage, and I want you to do like 12 minutes on Tony. Don't, just a whole monologue about Tony, right? Where he's from, how you know him, and then get into the bit. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm going, God, man, I just wanted to go up there and kill.
Kill, yeah.
And he had him dim the lights and put a spotlight on me.
Oh, wow.
And I had to, for 12 minutes, I had to do this monologue on Tony. And I was like improving it. And
Oh, you listened. You did it.
yeah, of course. But I didn't realize what I was gonna get out of it. So at the time, I'm just up there because I wanted to impress him, but I also was nervous to say I didn't want to do it. So I get up and I'm like, when I was a kid, there was this guy, Tony. Nobody really knew about, and I started going, nobody's laughing. I just hear, like in the back. He's the only one laughing. This is great, And I'm like, well, if I'm killing for Dice, and that's all I really care about, I guess. And I just stuck to it. And then he told me, right when you get the light, you got then get into the bit. And, I was getting chuckles here and there. But people are like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Then when I got into the bit and the music hit, the whole fucking place erupted because it made sense. And I didn't realize it at the time. But Dice gave me insight into how he does. And it's about, it was his commitment. And just committing to a bit, not bailing on the bit. And I'd never realized how that was. I mean, I thank him for it because it was a valuable thing that I got an insight to his way he does
style,
things.
yeah.
And then I noticed that when he would be on stage, like he would adjust the mic for like 5 minutes, like it has to be perfect.
Wow.
And the audience is quiet, like what's going on? And he's like, and he's positioning it, then he'll get low, right? And he just commits, and he doesn't flinch. And I'm like, that's something I got out of it.
That's hard to do. I know if I'm working on a bit and it's not working, I'll jump into some crowd work to get them in. I don't have that heart yet. it does.
But once you get to like 11 years, and then you start to realize, see, there's certain milestones I always say in comedy. Like in the beginning, a milestone is like 6, 11, and 15. But after like 6 years, you start, even maybe 4 years in, you start. Instead of putting stuff in your act, you start taking things out, right? Yeah. Then there comes a time like around 11 where you become okay with silence, right? You don't want to kill. You just want to get their attention. And then after 15, it's almost like, okay, you made $1 billion at 15 years.
Yeah.
Now if you make 20 billion, you're still a billionaire. You're still accumulating it, but you start to just, the more you get up, the more you start to get into it. And that's why stage time is the most important thing. But to be at the store and to follow Rogan, or follow a guy like Jimmy Schubert or John Caparulo where the energy was so high, or, a guy like Sebastian who just takes everything, and me and him toured together forever.
Yeah, the Vince Vaughn Wild West.
And then like Cap used to be like when we did the Wild West tour, we all took turns following each other, but we were used to that, the Comedy Store.
Wow.
I remember going to Montreal in 03 for the New Faces, and
I thought you did the Montreal Festival in 2010.
I've done it like a bunch of times. But
I thought that was your first. Okay.
No, 03 was the first.
Wow.
And I remember going there, and I was just happy there was like a crowd, and and it was during the day, but we're like, we this is just a set for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we got that training at the store. Did you watch the documentary on it, on the Comedy Store?
I saw bits and pieces of it.
Because that 20 years that the store was dead, we were always there working out.
Always working
that
out.
That Rogan era with the, Rogan, Diaz, and all these comics would just come in, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's like 5 people.
They're still grinding it out.
You still got to learn how to figure it out, and that training helps you later on.
How does it help you, like with as opposed to acting? Was acting something you wanted to do before stand up, or
no? I mean, it's all parallel. Like I'm also an option screenwriter, So, no, I'm saying like, you write, you perform. I mean, it's different things. I will say, and acting is much easier than auditioning.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like some people audition great and they get on set, and some people audition awful. I was an awful auditioner. So I took a lot of auditioning classes, but then there was, after you train at that for a while, then you learn how to come up with your own style, if that makes sense.
Find your
then
own
what
voice
works for
in it.
you. Yeah.
Your
Right.
own voice in it, yeah.
It's like sex. I always tell people, like, somebody's like, do you have any advice? It's like, just get up. Like, I could tell you where to put your dick,
Keep
but
it
after
up.
that, you're
Yeah,
wrong, you're wrong.
As long as you keep
Right?
it up,
And you
you're
develop
good.
what you like, and, after a while, you're like, okay, let's try this. And then you
now
start getting into weird shit.
No, I wasn't sure if acting something that came later down the line, or when you initially went up to LA. Like, everything was connected? Is that the way it worked out there?
Well, I meant, like, of course you go out there with the intentions of booking a series or something, but it's, you gotta pick one.
Yeah.
And I just always stuck with stand up. And then, but when you do very well in stand up, people ask you to come in for things, and then you're like, okay. And then I got a network deal in early 2000, and then they put me in a class. And then I was in classes for a while, and I'm like, I don't like classes because there's too many people. Like, there's a lot of people that are just there. They don't want to work. They're just like, let me tell you about this, and it becomes a fucking psychotherapy as opposed to let's get to work,
Yeah.
Because I got that comic work ethic. So then through that, I met a coach, and then I would work with a coach. But
Yeah,
I would
that's
like,
better.
I was delivering pizzas, working at the Shit Cake Factory, getting sets at night, and then again back then you had to mail out tapes, so that cost money. You had to
yeah.
get headshots, that cost money. You had to pay for your coach, that cost like $150 a session.
Wow. Yeah.
So you had
That's
to
it.
work to get that going, and it's much easier now to just send a link to something.
Right, right.
So you needed to make. I mean, I was spending about $800, I'd say about $500 a month. On top of that, just trying to get the class,
auditions and
sharpen the
things.
tool. You know what I mean? And
So
Florida's
I think we
really
talked about it
expensive.
right before we started. You headlined pretty quickly,
7 years.
seven
about
years
7
in, and
I started picking up one-nighters and like off weekends, and
Okay.
and then, but that's after 03 is when things started to pick up a little.
Right.
Because I sold the first show, and then I had a little scuttle in my pocket.
Yeah.
Then I was
Scuttle,
able
that's
to
a-
stay afloat.
That's money for people that's not Italian. That's money. Yeah,
And then,
money.
from there you're like, okay, what's the next thing? And since 03, it was a hustle.
That's awesome. Were you given opportunities to stretch in LA, or it was more on the road?
Yeah, there's a lot of like gigs out in like Palm Springs, and like we would drive 4 hours north. Or the Comedy Store has a club in San Diego, the La Jolla Store, which is my
heard
one of
of
my
it.
favorite clubs. So Mitzi would book like me, Sebastian, Sam Tripoli, and like Caparulo to do a show, and we'd all do like 25 minutes apiece, and then alternate who would go last. And
Okay.
so then you stretch that way, and then some guys will take you on the road with them, and they'll make you do 20, 25. You stretch that way, and then I always tell there's that 10,000 hour rule, right? But the
Yeah.
thing with comedy, you got to get that 10,000 hours, but it's like 5 minutes at a time.
At a time, it-
I was
it's
just-
15 minutes, 10 minutes.
That's what I was just going to say. The Store was a showcase club. It's like you're getting these opportunities to stretch for 50 minutes.
15, but in LA, and we're one after another, so you get a time slot. Like I might be on at 12:15, which means I get on at 12:45, right?
Okay.
Because if somebody gets bumped,
Right.
but that's what I was gonna say. You're developing an act at 15-minute increments. So I came up with my own thing where I would open with one bit and close with another, and then do another separate 15. But I know if I had to do 30, if I pieced those two 15 together, I'd open this way. I know if I close with this, then I could get an applause break there, and then start the new 15. So I actually developed my act in 15-minute increments, if that
Okay.
makes sense. And then I would piece them together, and then put, okay, this goes with this, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then,
yeah,
then if I'm doing
build a set like
45,
that.
then that means I'm doing 3 separate 15-minute sets that I would try and stand alone, if that makes sense.
That's how I learned.
Wow.
Yeah, when I was hosting, when I had that year of straight hosting with Comedy Cabaret, that's how I had to build mine too. Just
We all do it.
Chop it up.
And that's the
it
beautiful
seems
thing
to me.
about comedy, too. Every one of us has been where you're at,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if
for
you're a
sure.
real, like,
Appreciate
if you're a
that,
road comic, or like a real comic that's been doing it for 20-something years, we don't look at you, you're a guy that's coming up. Like, we don't, it's not like you need to earn it. No, we're all brethren.
Yeah, we're all, yeah.
We know what it's like to MC. We know what it's like to have to, eat a dick after, like, we've all been there. I did it. If you ever read Sebastian's book, he talks about that gig we did in a boxing ring one
Just
time.
got done reading
Wow.
it. We just got done.
Yeah,
reading
that
it.
one that he talked about the boxing ring when we went up to Modesto, and then fights break out, people throw shit at you, and you just gotta go be funny.
It was a real fight. It wasn't,
I wasn't involved. It was these kids just started fighting.
How's the scene in Vegas? I know you're there now. You're doing a little bit of
Yeah, a
residency.
lot of good comics have come out there, and there's a bunch of rooms popping up.
That's good.
But I get to do an hour a night Tuesdays and Wednesdays at the Strat. But I get to experiment out there, so it's good. I need those. You just gotta keep sharpening that tool, man.
Yeah.
At every chance. And this COVID, that's the longest I was off stage.
It's hard getting
So
back up after you're out.
Did you do any crazy COVID gigs like trucks outside? You refused.
I was in Florida, like I said. They
was in Florida.
They weren't even
Give a
wearing
shit.
masks. They weren't even wearing rubbers there. They were having bar shows, and everybody was like fucking still doing it.
Yeah.
Well, you looked extremely polished tonight. He slayed for an hour 15. You were up there.
Something like that.
Yeah. But you're about to go up for your second show.
We'll hear it.
You sure?
Yeah.
Oh, we
it's
keep going. Okay, I just didn't want to.
I mean, if you want to wrap it up.
No,
We're pretty good.
I
So,
ju-
what made you wanted to get? What make you want to start getting into comedy?
Oh, it's now. Jay's got it at 3.5 the spread. So it should be 4. We call it the hook.
Wait, that's the new line? 3.5?
3.5. He's got it. I think in
Home
Vegas.
dog, right? Home dog.
Well, Kansas City's given 3.5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Tampa
yeah.
Bay's home.
Yeah. Oh yeah, home underdog. Yeah.
Home dog. Now I know what side you're betting. You're going with the Chiefs. I know where his head's at now. It's like fuck Brady. That's what he's thinking. You're probably
Nah,
betting
I'm
those
gonna
prop
move.
bets.
I'm gonna move on.
See, I keep forgetting you live in Vegas now. You're probably betting those crazy prop bets. Like,
Yeah.
is Brady going to get his leg busted
Well,
a quarter in?
That's when you know you're a degenerate when you're down $100 at the coin toss.
The coin toss.
You're like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Vegas has restricted hours right now or no?
No, not really. I mean, the nightclubs aren't open. The comedy clubs are limited seating, and then you have to be a certain amount of distance from the audience. So the club built a stage, a separate stage from the other stage, and everybody's trying to make it work.
Yeah.
When I just did the Stress Factory, Vinny Brand put a tent outside.
How was that?
It just doesn't make sense. You're still in a tent.
Yeah, it's still the same
I
thing.
mean, but that's the COVID restriction. So he built it. It's like Night at the Roxbury where they had the club where now you're outside to be inside. That's pretty much what people are doing comedy now.
You're still like in something.
You're still in
It's
something.
something. Whatever works. Loophole, we taking whatever.
And the
Whatever.
airplanes are the safest place to be because all that air.
I
is
read
filtered.
that
Yeah.
somewhere. That's crazy.
And then there's no middle seats in a lot of planes, so
Yeah.
it's actually better. I have all this. I fly everywhere, so I know all the tricks.
What do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug before we wrap?
Well, we're gonna start season 4. We start recording season 4, and I just booked the show Tacoma. You watched that? The fire department,
I haven't seen it yet.
No.
the
Yeah.
Broken Lizard guys, the guys who did Super Troopers.
Oh, wow.
So they have a series there, but we haven't shot that yet. And I'm shopping the new special. But the principal's office just hit over 3 million.
3
views.
million. I seen that.
Yeah.
Why is it?
Great.
One more question before we end. I'm
When you
noticing
just see me take off, that's when the interview's over.
I'm seeing a lot of national headliners like yourself are starting to put their specials out on YouTube.
I was the first to do it.
Why is that becoming a regular thing now?
And it makes more sense. So when I did it, well, Louie kind of did it first, but he charged $5, and then I put it out for free because Ari and and Bill Burr's like, just get it out, because I was holding on to this $20,000. I had to figure out a way to make it work because nobody was going to license it at the time.
Yeah.
And then I just built out a site, brettcomedy.com, with one T, and I just put it out there. And because I came from the nightclub business, if I don't get you at the door, I'll get you at the bar.
Yeah.
So I just wanted people to see the product, and then it set me up for this next one I just shot in Vegas, which I'm shopping now. So, but it gave me a little bit more leverage.
Good move.
But it
Good
was
move.
a long play. It was almost a 3-year play.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
But
but
it
it paid
off.
off. Paid
Yeah.
off. So
Definitely a
that's worth
risk.
It was at like 500,000, 600,000 for like a year and a half, and then it just started going and going. But then it was featured in Men's Health as like one of the top 5 specials, and I self-produced it.
Wow.
It was
that's
like a
huge.
Netflix, and then me. And then, people just started talking about it. And all my friends are comics, so I promoted it on the websites. I mean, on the podcast, you know,
then?
because we're all self-sufficient now. People forget everything is built on comedy. And nowadays, it seems like the industry doesn't have enough respect for what we do, right? It's a skill to write comedy. It's a skill to perform comedy. Right? I'm not saying it's not a skill to act, but a lot of comics, you know, a lot of drama can't do comedy, but you can go the other way.
Right.
But it's an actual skill that we've honed for 20 years.
Yeah.
So people check boxes as if it's like anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, until they hit the stage.
Absolutely.
You hit the stage, you learn quick.
You know, but again, if we'll outlast the industry.
Well,
And that's a lot of the advice I got from older guys. If you love what you do, man, it don't matter. It's
Don't
fun.
matter, yeah.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, Brett, break a leg, man. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Imagine I'm like, okay, I get up. Fine.
Go Chiefs,
Great
I
having
guess,
you
right?
out, though.
Yeah, I think so.
You think so?
You know what though, man? Like I'm glad I would have taken Green Bay, and I thought Buffalo was playing the best football, but I can't see the Chiefs. Just say both teams fire on all syllables, cylinders, right?
Cylinders.
Yeah. I never claimed to be smart. The Chiefs should win. Because it's not about Brady. Because when Brady played when it was the Saints, it was more that
But I just brought
the
up
Saints
that-
self-destructed than.
I brought up that one detail. It's all Florida residents in the audience. That's,
Yeah, but
that
not-
has a little. It's
but-
home field advantage. 2-week break.
If they let Tampa fans in, yeah, but people in Florida root for the Giants and the Jets and you know.
They
Dallas.
definitely do.
Yeah, Dallas. But I would like to see Tom Brady, because when are we ever going to see this again? And plus, he's got to get one for the '70s babies, you know. But you know, I think Mahomes. I love Mahomes. I think he's a special kid, man. He really is, man. He's a good kid, from what I hear. I never met him. Brady's a nice guy too, but you know what I mean. I think Mahomes is the future, so I think it's cool. Because there's no way the NFL was not going to let Mahomes. That you knew they were just going to overlook that concussion protocol. There's no way that the Chiefs are not going to play Mahomes versus Brady. You know, but
Yeah, they were banking on it for sure.
yeah, I'm so all hyped up, man. I drank a Red Bull and I got off stage. And
If you notice, I feel bad right now because I know some people like to wind
like
down
being
before they hit the
before
stage.
the stage again.
He's
No.
literally waiting for his name to be called right now, and he's going to do it over an hour.
no,
Listen, it's out of control
shut
to
up,
me.
Shut up. Okay, talk fast.
dude, I mean,
He's just trying something different. I guess I don't know.
I mean, we do this all the time. You're in the hallway, and the next thing you know, you hear dun 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 the piano. You gotta run in. Oh shit, you know. I'll be back. Let's argue sports some more. This is what we do.
You got any more road stuff coming up, or?
Yeah, I'm in Jersey again. I'm in Bananas February 19th and 20th. I think
Okay.
that Friday and Saturday. And then, then I got to take off for Cobra Kai because, you know, we don't know. I don't know when the exact shoot dates are, but I got to keep it
okay.
open for like 3 months. So.
Okay.
When you got into that project, did you know it was going to be a Netflix thing, or you had no?
No.
Oh, really?
I mean, it was originally on YouTube, on their
Yeah.
premium thing. That was like
I
supposed to be
remember
their flagship show, and we shot most of it like 2 years ago. Like season 2 was out, and season 3 was already in the can when Netflix picked it up. So they
Wow.
released 1 and 2, and then held on to 3, and now 4 is actually being produced by Netflix and all that
Holy
stuff. But
shit.
the other 3 were licensed.
Yeah, Netflix runs this.
That's crazy.
Netflix
Yeah, they
takes
do.
whatever they want.
My shit.
All right, man.
All
Stay
right,
healthy.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think she's winding down.
My man.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks, Brett.
kids.